Hi everyone, in this lecture we are going to talk about CSS Transition Properties. Now CSS Transition Properties, as the name suggests, they allow us to transition from one state for a CSS box to the next state for a CSS box in a smooth manner. Like when we talked about pseudo classes, we saw that when you hover on a link, it abruptly changes colors or changes backgrounds or colors. But we can make that change very smooth with CSS transitions. First, let's create some content. So I'm going to create a section. I'm going to give it a class of wrapper. So when you're creating containers, you could use the name container or wrapper. Doesn't really matter. Both of them specify that this is, in fact, a container. I'm going to bring in an image. This is within the images folders. I'm going to say /. I'm going to grab the Dodge image. A red car, I'm going to say a red car. And then within this section, I'm going to create a div and I'm going to give it a class of overlay. You can think of this as a mini project, right? So within this div, I'm going to create an image, and this image is going to be from the images folder. And this time it's going to be Camaro. And this is going to be a black car. Let's save that. So we have both of our images here. These are very gigantic images, but we are going to fix their size. Don't worry. Let's dive into CSS. First, let's grab the wrapper. This is very good practice for your CSS as well. I'm going to set the width to 800 pixels, the height to 500 pixels, and I'm going to say position relative. Now you know that something amazing is about to happen because we've used position relative. Okay, let's grab the image. Now this is the first time, I think the first time that we are styling an image, an inline image. So I'm going to give it a height, a width of 100% of its container, which means it's going to be 800 pixels. A height of 100% of its container, which again means 500 pixels. And let's save both of those. Now, what is the issue here? Whenever you provide a specific height and width for your inline images, background images, this is uniform. Now, when it comes to technical image stuff, it doesn't matter whether that is an inline image or background image. The technicality applies on both types of the images. What do I mean by that? What I mean is whenever you insert an image, the image has a specific height and width. Why? Because that height and width of the image has been created carefully and meticulously to keep the image aspect ratio. Why is the image aspect ratio so important in CSS? Because when you're creating websites, you need to keep that in mind, that you don't want your images to be squished together or stretched apart. That is a very, very horrible UX. You need to keep that in mind. Like in this case, the image is being squished together from the top and bottom. I can't really say about this one, but when there is a property in CSS that helps us maintain the aspect ratio of an image when we provide it with a different height and width than the image has. For the most part, when you insert images, like always, when you insert images into your websites, you change their height and width to your desired values. And when you change it, they're going to lose their aspect ratio. You need to preserve that. What is the property? It is the object fit. Now, for background images, we had background size, cover. For object fit, for inline images, we have object fit. Object fit has two major values. One is contain, the other one is cover. They do the same thing as background size cover or background size contain. So I'm not going to explain that anymore. And when I save that, did anything happen? I think something happened here. So let's take a look at it again. Let's just make sure something happens. Let me do that. Okay, nothing happened. If I just enlarge it, 800. Let me just make this smaller, make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go 1000. So 1000. And now you can see how the image is a little bit ruined. Okay, it was actually preserving the aspect ratio, but it wasn't that visible. Now it is that visible. There we go. So you can see this image, it's not squished, it's being stretched away, stretched apart. Like, what is the actual word? There we go. So if you say backgrounds, object fit cover, now the image, it preserves its aspect ratio, both of them, of course. But this one doesn't change for some reason, because I think these values are compatible with almost with the current aspect ratio of the image. But nonetheless, when you want to make sure the inline images, they keep their aspect ratio, you use object fit equal to cover. You need to keep that in mind. That's the only thing that you need to keep in mind. Can I make this a little bit smaller and bring this here? There we go. Now let's grab our overlay. Let's give it a position absolute. Position absolute is going to look for a reference, and it usually has to find the reference within the parent. If it can't find it within the parent, then it's going to look for the body. It's going to take the body as a reference. This case, position relative is the body. It says that, hey, overlay, I am providing you with an anchor point. I, the wrapper, am providing you with an anchor point. So when you're moving, make sure you move according to my will. That's exactly what it is saying. So when you say top 0, it's top 0 of the wrapper, not top 0 of the body. And we're going to say bottom 100%. You could again think of this as a mini project, and at the end you're going to see the thing that we're going to end up with. And I'm going to give it the height 0. Oops. The height is going to be 0. And also overflow is going to be hidden. Overflow is whenever the content is more than the height and width or the dimensions of the HTML element, they cannot contain the content. Then you change it. You say, okay, any text that overflows from the content, from the actual element, just hide it. Or provide a scroll bar so we can scroll up or down. That's what overflow actually does. Now let's talk about transition first. The transition, it has actually 4 properties. 4 property values, like border. For border, we had border color, border width, and border style. For transition, we have which property you want to transition, how long you want it to transition, what is going to be the timing function, how you want it to transition, in what manner, and are there any delays. Delays mean after 2 seconds, then start transitioning it. So I'm going to say transition. When I provide all, it means that all of the elements will be, all of the properties will be transitioned. I'm going to tell you what this all actually refers to in like a minute. 0.5 seconds is going to be the transition duration, and ease in is going to be how the transition is going to occur. How long and how you want it to occur. So you want it to occur linearly, you want it to occur starting fast, ease in, starting fast at first and then easing in towards the end, and these kind of things. It specifies the behavior for that transition. And I'm not going to provide it with any kind of delay. Now, where is actually the transition happening? This is another important part of it as well. Now, I'm going to grab the wrapper, and I'm going to say hover. Hover is a pseudo class. It's a state. It says when the wrapper is hovered, what is the wrapper? The wrapper is the section which contains both of the images. So when the wrapper is hovered, I want the overlay to receive the following styles. I want it to have a bottom of 0, a height of 100 pixels. Again, when the wrapper is hovered, it means when I mouse over it, the overlay, because there is another class there, the overlay will receive these 2 styles. The hover or the wrapper, they're not going to receive these styles. What is the last thing in this declaration, in this CSS selector? It is the overlay. So when you say when the wrapper is hovered, it even shows you pop up here. So element class wrapper, it's hovered, then we want the element class overlay to do something. To do what? The bottom is 0, height is 100%. It means I want the overlay to come from the top towards the bottom. Let's save that. Let's take a look at it. There we go. See? So it is coming from the top towards the bottom. This is an amazing effect. You could do this with text, with anything else. These things are used a ton in real-world projects, and they don't have any other purpose apart from the aesthetics, enhancing the aesthetics of the websites. That is the only thing that they do. They just enhance the aesthetics. They just make sure that the user experience is better. Now let's take a look at this property a little more. I'm just going to decrease that. Don't mind the horizontal scroll bar. We are going to fix that when we get to our projects. Now there is another property which is behavior, which is ease out. These are different if you have the eye for it. Sometimes I can detect how different they are, and sometimes I cannot detect it. What this all refers to, I told you I'm going to tell you what this all refers to. It refers to these two properties. So if you say all, it is going to transition the bottom and it is going to transition the height. If you specify a specific name for property, only that property will have a smooth transition. Now, the other one, the timing, these ease in, ease out, they're called timing functions. We also have ease in out. You can see the behavior changes a little bit. Let's provide it with some delay. So if I say 2 seconds, and when you hover on the section, after 2 seconds, the image is going to come down. That is what the delay actually refers to. You could also specify specific properties that you want to transition. Maybe in your hover state, you have 100, but you only want to transition 2 of them. Then you need to specify them, like write their names. The first one is going to be bottom, and then provide a comma and space. The next one is going to be the height. This is how you provide specific property, bottom and height. We still have the same thing. And there is another timing function that is the Cubic Bezier, and I'm going to give you an example of that as well. So I'm going to say all, instead of ease in out, you're going to be, you can also use Cubic Bezier. These values, they define how the behavior of the movement of this transition is going to be different. So if you save that, okay, see, it's different than the ease in or ease out. I really like this 101, and I think in some of my projects I've also used this. So with this, our lecture comes to an end. See you in the next one.